Hello, Revere, and welcome to the Revere Veterans and Community Show. Today I have a real special guest. Her name is Cherylo Poppe. She's the superintendent of the Chelsea Soldiers Home, and she's a veteran of 30 years, folks. 30 years, Mrs. Poppe. It's an honor to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
And it's
Mr.
my pleasure to have you take off your valuable time to come here, so thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Before we start, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, as you mentioned, I served in the Army National Guard for 30 years in Massachusetts. 13 of those years I was on active duty with the National Guard. I had different positions all the way up to the last I was the Director of Personnel.
Where was that at, if I may ask?
Back at that point, the headquarters was in Milford, Massachusetts. And so when I retired from there, I was working a lot on reintegration of soldiers returning from at that point from Iraq and Afghanistan. So when I retired, I was really honored to have the opportunity to go to work for the Massachusetts Department of Veterans Services, where I had oversight of all the outreach activities. And then in 2014, I had the opportunity to come to the Soldiers Home in April of 2014, and so now I've been there 3.5 years.
And how do you enjoy it, by the way?
It's a real honor to be the superintendent, the 13th superintendent of the Soldiers Home in Chelsea.
Right. Now, I've been myself at the Soldiers Home, so I can speak.
Right.
But today, approximately, how many soldiers are there at the Soldiers Home? Now, that's both male and female, correct?
Correct. So we have in long-term care about 126 veterans. Mostly World War II veterans. We have 5 women there.
From
but
World
we
War
also, a couple from World War II, but some from other eras. And then in the domiciliary, which is the independent living, we have 171 veterans right now, and those are mostly Vietnam era veterans, but we have 11 women among those veterans there in the domiciliary. So around 300 that we're serving right now altogether.
Right. Now, if I'm I am a veteran, but if I am a veteran and wanted to get into the Chelsea Soldiers Home, what are the requirements that I would need to enter?
Well, obviously anyone coming to the Soldiers Home has to complete an application process. So for long-term care, there's a different application whether you're going to long-term care or the domiciliary. But the basic eligibility requirements is that you be a veteran, according to the Massachusetts definition of a veteran.
Before we
and
continue,
that
when you say veteran, that
correct.
means if a veteran has been in the service during wartime, one day he's considered?
Yes, and then 90 days of service. So, and then residency requirement is 1 day. And then for the domiciliary, in order to really be successful, we look for people who want to come to the dorm to have between 4 to 6 months of sobriety.
Okay, then I have to ask you this question, Mrs.
Yes.
Can I call you Mrs. Poppe or Cheryl?
You can call me Cheryl.
Okay,
That'd be
thank
fine.
you. Cheryl, when you mention 1 day and 90 days, I'm I'm not too clear on that.
Right.
That means you have to have been in the service at least 90 days.
Correct. Whereas for
What is
VA
that?
benefits, the period is longer. So you have more of a benefit as a Massachusetts veteran for eligibility.
Right. Now, what is that 1 day? So if I'm in action 1 day, let's say, I still can enter the
Or
soldier?
during wartime. We have veterans that have served peacetime that are at the Soldiers Home. So it's the 90 days of service.
Oh, it's 90 days for peacetime?
Not counting training.
Okay, and 1 day for wartime. So I wasn't during wartime because President Truman officially ended the war December the 31st, 1946. Does that still hold true at the Soldiers Home?
In terms of the time period?
Right.
You mean, so
Like from December 7, 1941
Right.
to December the 31st, 1946, President Truman considered those
yes,
in between that?
absolutely. That would qualify.
Oh, okay. Well, that might create a problem because I wasn't in the 90 days during the official war.
But you served during that wartime period.
Oh, yeah, that I did. Okay, now I have some other, continue, excuse me for interrupting you. I just wanted
And
to,
then be a Massachusetts resident. I think that's important to point out because Massachusetts, the residency requirement for all benefits, with the exception of the welcome home bonus, is 1 day. I think that's important to know.
right. Okay, now, to get into the Soldiers Home, is there like how can I say that? Like a financial limit? In other words, if a veteran makes so much, he cannot get in, or regardless whether you're the richest or the poorest?
More of the eligibility is based upon, there is a certain, we do ask for people's income requirements when they're applying to the Soldiers Home, and then it's actually when we determine whether there's grant per diem, the VA will say whether someone is determined to be eligible versus their income requirements.
Right. Now, before we went on the air, you mentioned something that I enjoy very much, music.
Okay, yes.
And you mentioned something about music therapy at the Soldiers Home. Would you expand on that for us, Cheryl?
Yes, so we've had a music therapy program probably going on for 3 years. Obviously, there's music a lot at the home with just the entertainment. We're very, very privileged that we have a lot of people who volunteer their time, who come and they perform. We also have entertainers who will come and perform some music at the Soldiers Home. And then we have activities that they can participate in. But in the last few years, we've had a special music therapy program working with a group called Resounding Joy. And in the DOM side, the independent living, those veterans can participate in what they call our GI Jams band. And so you can imagine when you're learning an instrument after you're 25 years old or so, it can be a bit of a challenge, but they really made some great progress. And when we have our annual cookout, they perform at the cookout. They will be, matter of fact, on December 20th, they'll be giving a little concert over at the Soldiers Home. I believe that's at about 7 p.m. on the 20th with the GI Jams band. But on the other side, on the long-term care side, music therapy works with our veterans to just kind of bring back memory. And so for someone who may be suffering with dementia, even that moment that it brings back the music, you play a familiar tune or the music that you remember, it brings that memory back. It's so vitally important. It's really a great program that we have at the home.
I couldn't agree with you more, because I'll tell you, I do DJ at the senior center. And I would like to see a lot of seniors come down to our senior center. And people come over to me and they say, Morris, would you play this song for me? That's when I met my husband, or that's when I got married, or they want to play like by Anne Murray, Save This Dance for me. I mean, by the Drifters, Save the Last Dance, that they always had. And I would play for them and said, when you do that, it brings back 1,000 memories to me, which is good.
It does. It really helps a lot, and it's pleasant to listen to.
I would like to take a minute and thank one of your nurses there, if I may, Cheryl. Lisa's her name.
Okay.
She used to take my blood, or a lot of
Okay.
people's blood. But let me tell you, I never felt a pinch and I squinch when someone comes to me with a needle.
Okay.
I mean, they have to catch me literally because I'm faster than the needle. But I mean, when Lisa did it, you didn't even know it was there.
I will have to let her know that.
Right, so
I'll
can I
pass
say
that on.
thank you, Lisa, for the
Sure.
fabulous job you did for
Sure.
our veterans and for me. Okay, I
Absolutely.
didn't get that info. I would like to talk to you, besides the music therapy, what other activities are there at the Soldiers Home?
Well, as I mentioned, there is entertainment that takes place. We are really fortunate, as I mentioned earlier, that we have a lot of volunteers that come to the home. And then we have a lot of veterans groups, and then we have just all the civic organizations, whether it's the Elks, the Moose, the Lions. They will do activities. They'll have cookouts, bingo. They'll sponsor bingos, and they'll do activities for our veterans. And obviously, all the different veteran service organizations do great things on campus for our veterans. So they either can go out for meals, they'll go out to cookouts or different other kinds of activities, and also, you know, they sponsor bingo inside. So we have those kinds of activities, or they'll do a lot of holiday parties around this time of year. We're very fortunate, for example, on Thanksgiving and then coming up at Christmas, the Jewish war veterans have been serving that meal for our veterans for the last 60 years, along with a Boy Scout troop from the area. So we're really fortunate that we have those kinds of activities. We also have twice a week, there are Alcoholics Anonymous meetings on campus. There's a Narcotics Anonymous meeting on Sundays, and those are open to the community. There's Food Addicts in Recovery, what we used to be called Overeaters Anonymous. So we really have been working with the community to have some programs on campus that are available to everyone.
That's great. Now, about the chapel, if I may ask you,
Yes.
the services are those for three faiths or just Christian or Jewish or Muslim?
We're fortunate to have three kinds of different services with that. We have obviously the St. Michael's Chapel on
Right, that's the one
campus
I'm talking
with
about.
Father Healy,
Yep.
who's the Catholic chaplain there, and a two-time Vietnam veteran himself who served.
He's blind,
And so
isn't he,
he's
Father
on-
Healy?
I haven't
Partially?
really noticed
Okay.
that. He's extremely sharp and very dedicated
That he
and
is.
does special services for us. And we do have a beautiful Jewish chapel on site, and Jewish war veterans are very involved with that. And we'll have a cantor that'll come on campus. I believe it might even be on Sunday that they come, I'm not sure, that do a service there. And then we also have a Protestant chaplain, Chaplain Quirk, joined us recently. He is a retired colonel, West Point graduate,
Wow.
Army veteran, and so he comes on to do Bible studies and does a service on Sunday as well in the ecumenical room.
Right. Now, someone mentioned to me who was also at the Soldiers' Home, and I can read it right here, that he enjoyed one time the Red Sox coming down there with a trophy. Tell us a little about that.
I think that was a Veterans Day 2 years ago, and we had a double treat that day because the governor came to visit that
Charlie
day.
Baker? No.
Governor Baker came to visit that afternoon. We also had the Wally, the mascot, came with the Red Sox trophy, or the World Series trophy, I should say, for the veterans. That was in 2015, and that was a really good time. And we've had a lot of nice events like that.
I know that. Now, I got to ask you this, Cheryl. When I was in Brockton, they told me for the therapy for my foot, if I wanted to, I could go to the Soldiers' Home for therapy. I mean, not live there, but I could go there for therapy, that they would recommend it. Was that?
Well, we don't have, we used to have the outpatient clinic, but we don't.
Oh, you don't have it
that
anymore?
closed in 2012, long before I got there. So the veterans who live in long-term care, they get occupational therapy and
Oh, I
PT
see.
services. But the other services are for veterans. Someone would go to the VA for that.
So they closed that in 2012?
2012.
I hope Governor Baker is listening to me because I like to see that reopen because it's good for the veterans that have to travel far for their occupational therapy or for their therapy at all and have it come back to the Chelsea Soldiers' Home because you had great people at that time that were doing a great job for us.
Yeah, that I knew. My understanding was that the census was going down at that point, and a lot of veterans weren't using that service as much, and so the Causeway Street Clinic was used at the time. But
Now, Cheryl, you brought up another good subject, the Home Commission for the Blind.
yes.
Could you expand
Yes.
on that?
Oh, so we have a canteen on campus that's operated by the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind. I think you had asked a question about when, obviously meals that are served on campus are for the residents that live on campus. Sometimes guests when they're invited or family members that are visiting, but we also have a canteen that operates in the headquarters buildings from 2 to 8. And that's if someone's visiting, that's another place that they can get snacks. And so the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind operates that canteen for us. We're really pleased to have them back on campus again.
Right, and I have to say one thing down there. I was down there during Thanksgiving to visit a friend of mine, Mr. Tom Miller, and the food was delicious right there. Could you give us an example what they serve? Because it wasn't just one thing. They have a variety of foods.
They
that you
do. They do. We have a really good, I think we have a really good kitchen staff.
Excellent.
John
I would
Stokes
say
is our
excellent.
Director of Food Services, and then we also have 2 food service supervisors as well that are always trying to do some creative things because obviously you're working to serve people that have different kinds of needs and different kinds of diets, whether it's long-term care or the DOM. And so, you know, people have different tastes. So they had something like a macaroni and cheese bar one day. He had a chili cook-off another day. He did some special salads. So there's usually one entree that's, you know, whether it's fish, chicken, beef, or pork, and then there's always a salad, and then there's always an ability to have sandwiches for the residents that live at the home.
Here's a great question for you. Some of the Orthodox Jews and the Muslims cannot eat pork. Do they make special meals if it's required for them?
I haven't seen special meals per se, but like I said, there's
there's
always an
variety.
option to get something.
So,
I myself do not eat beef, chicken, or pork, and there's always fish, and then there's tuna fish, or there's some kind of a salad sandwich, so that there's always an opportunity to get your proteins in.
Right. Now, before we went on the air, a lot of people have asked me about World War II veterans, and you say there's only a few at the Soldiers' Home, right?
We have actually about 49 World War II veterans
49?
in long-term care, and we have 2 World War II veterans living in the independent living.
Right. That's old veterans. Now I'm going to ask you, who's the youngest veteran in there? If you can just mention the age, not the name if you don't want to.
Oh, the youngest
Would have to be from Afghanistan.
Well, we have some veterans who are in their probably 30s who
Those are
have
the
come
young
from
ones?
Iraq and Afghanistan.
The reason I mentioned that, a lot of people ask me who was the youngest World War II veteran. They think 17 years old is young. They are wrong, and so am I. The youngest one was, believe it or not, 12 years old.
And that's the first time I heard that today. I learned something from you there.
And his name, if I can mention his name, he's not here with us anymore, may he rest in peace, was Calvin Leon Graham, went in 1942 at the age of 12. Can you imagine going into the service, 12 years old?
I can't imagine what his mom and dad might have thought.
Well, I wasn't around then. Cheryl, what would you like to see the Soldiers' Home? If you had a chance to improve on it, what improvements would you make if you could?
Well, one of the things that we've been working on actually is applying for a federal VA grant for a new community living center. Because since the Soldiers' Home, we have excellent care and very good quality of care. Obviously, if you've been there, we're 135 years old. We have an aging infrastructure in all of the buildings. But particularly in the long-term care building, there's a requirement by VA now that you should have no more than 4 people to a room. And obviously, if you've ever seen our open ward design, that had about 20 people to a room. What we have done in the interim is that we have kind of agreed to bring those beds down to about 10 per ward. So obviously that makes our wait list even longer. So one of the things that we've been working on with the Department of Veterans Services, with the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, and then the Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance, is to apply for a VA construction grant that, if the VA approves, would give us funding to help, some of the funding toward building a new facility. So we've applied for the grant. We're keeping our fingers crossed that when the list comes out, that we'll be on the list for funding. But in order to assist that, if you saw in any of the news, Governor Baker signed a bond bill right before Thanksgiving for $199 million, and that is to get bonding to support some of the other costs of that facility. So we're really, really pleased about that, and the support of the Baker administration and the legislature to make that bond bill happen for us, to get some of that funding for a new long-term care facility that's very badly needed for our residents.
Great, because I want to say thank you, Governor Baker. You do a lot for the veterans. Now, there's a question that came up that was asked right here. I want to make sure I get it right. Married couples,
yes,
husband and wife,
right.
There is no facility for them right now at the Chelsea Soldiers' Home. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. Now, in the domiciliary, it's all, single living quarters. In long-term care, and again, that's a reason for a new long-term care facility, is to be able to have the ability for family members to be able to visit with more privacy and dignity. What we do have, if someone is, families are able to stay overnighting quickly if someone's at the end of life. And then we have a family room for that, but that's only in long-term care. That is not in the dorm.
Okay. Now, if people wanted to work, exactly what is the Soldiers Home looking for that they can use, like nurses, doctors? I mean, what are the requirements for someone to apply for a job at the Soldiers Home?
Sure. I think currently right now we have some positions posted for some licensed practical nurses. There might be a nursing supervisor. Now we post within the facility and outside the facility. Obviously, for certain positions, you would have to have, certain experience. Obviously, with nursing, you'd have to have a nursing degree. Medical, for example, you'd have to have the requisite education. All the other positions sometimes will have a requirement for experience in a certain field. However, the way the hiring system does work in Massachusetts is sometimes if you have education, sometimes the education can substitute for the experience in certain fields.
Is there an age limit there, by the way, if I may ask? Or there isn't, if you're an experienced nurse or experienced doctor?
You just have to be able to have the education and the experience in order to work there. But most of the people who work there are certainly over 18. And then obviously, depending upon completion of the educational qualifications, they may be over that. But in order to apply for any position, whether it's at the Soldiers Home or anywhere in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it's called Mass Careers. It's all online now. So if you go to www.mass.gov, and then you can search under the menu for employment opportunities to work in the Commonwealth. You can search by agency, you can search by location, and then you will look for Soldiers Home in Chelsea, if you're interested in Chelsea, and look for the positions there, and you can apply online through, it's called Mass Careers. It's a faster way to apply, and it's a more convenient way, I think, especially in our internet age, for a lot of our citizens to be able to apply for positions, whether it's at the Soldiers Home or any place in the Commonwealth.
Right. I'd just like to go over one more thing before I do that. If people want to contact the Soldiers Home,
yes,
can they do it through the email, or Gmail, or the telephone? Would you give us those over the...
Sure. Well, we have a website. It's www.mass.gov/CHE. We also have, so you can look at that site, but we also have the main phone number to the Soldiers Home is 617-884-5660, and the switchboard can connect you to all of the different departments to be able to speak with someone.
Right. Is there any hours that you can reach the Soldiers Home any time of the day, if I may? Or there's specific hours that they can call within?
It's usually best to try to contact the Soldiers Home probably between, we have someone on the switchboard from 7 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night answering the switchboard, but even if you can't reach someone through those numbers, there's voicemail and all those other wonders of technology.
Right. Now, excuse me. On the activities, you do have movies?
Yes, we do. We have Friday night movies that they do in our auditorium for the residents. All right, is it Saturday? I think it's Saturday night movies, sorry about that. And actually, I know every Monday they've been watching some different documentaries. They watched all of Band of Brothers was one of them. They watched The Pacific. I forget what they're looking at right now.
Oh,
the residents kind of decide what they want to see.
Right now, the soldiers there, they don't have to get up like reveille like we did when we were in the service, like 4:30, 5 o'clock, or they can get up anytime they want.
They can get up anytime they want.
And if they miss the breakfast, that's their problem.
Well, remember that's where, at some point they'll be able to go to the canteen and kind of catch up the breakfast at that point. If someone's working, sometimes they can arrange to have their meals held for them too, so that they get their 3 meals that they need to be able to have in order to sustain their health.
Now, Cheryl, we have, as you can see, about 3.5 minutes left. Why don't you take at least 2.5 of that for yourself and talk about anything you would like?
I'm just really happy to have been able to be here to talk about what we do at the Soldiers Home. You know, we're really, I'm very proud of the staff and their work. Sure.
Excuse me for
Go ahead.
interrupting. If people want to drop off gifts and clothing and things, can they do that at the Soldiers Home for the veterans?
Yes, they can. We actually, there's sort of a list of items on the website that the residents have asked for
Give
in the
us the
past
most
because
important
we
things
can't.
they asked for. I know toothpaste is one.
Well, they actually, right now, they have enough toothpaste, but
do? Shaving
you
cream?
know, some of the personal items they've requested, and so now they've kind of adjusted that little list that they have. And obviously, we don't ask for anything, but we do accept donations for them.
That would be great. Okay, now we have 2 minutes left.
We have 2 minutes
Take
left
a minute
to talk.
and a half. Just leave me 30 seconds.
Right. No, it's, as I said, it's really an honor to be there with the Soldiers Home there, and to see the work that our residents, to see the help that our residents do get there, as well as to see the work that's done by staff. But I am always, always very thankful for all of the efforts on the part of our volunteer organizations, our veteran service organizations, our auxiliaries. For example, the American Legion Auxiliary will be running a little Christmas shop, and I call it a shop because the veterans don't have to buy anything. They will bring in items that the veterans can choose, and so that when their children and grandchildren come to visit, they'll have a present for them at the holidays. And so the American Legion Auxiliary will be setting that up.
That's fine. And you do take them out on trips too, I assume.
Yes, we do. We do.
And where
And
do you usually take them?
I think I know the last they went to Anthony's of Malden was one of their trips. I think they go to the Continental occasionally. And then they've had opportunities where, you know, if there was a ticket donation to a sporting event, they went to that event as well.
Right, Cheryl. I want to say it was a pleasure and an honor to have you come up here. So let me thank you for taking the time off.
Thank you for having me, Morris.
It was
It's been an
our
honor to
It
be
was
here
the
on the
Revered
show.
Veterans honor to have you here.
Thank you.
You do a terrific job at the Soldiers Home.
Thank you very much.
Thank you on behalf of the veterans. And to the people of Revere, thank you for listening. And to our troops overseas in the military, thank you. God bless you and take care of you. And to all of you, have a happy holiday. Until the next time we meet, thank you.